It's basically you should be at safety, an industrial perspective, and the presenter is John Peterson. Do you have anybody co-presenting, John, or are you all set?
I do. One of them is our safety captain, Sarah. And the other one is one of our students whose name is also John.
Okay, Sarah and John. Now, do they need co-host privileges, or are you going to just do the main presenting?
I'm just going to do the main presenting.
Okay, very good. Welcome, John, and Sarah. Yep, I can see that. Yeah, looks
Okay.
good, John.
Excellent. Okay, since I am in industry, I want to share what safety issues we have there and why it's important, because it is very important. And basically, what I do in mentoring the team on safety is I just take all of the elements and everything like that that I've encountered at the various companies I've worked at, and we do the same thing. That's what First Robotics does for you. It gives you an idea of what you'll be doing in your profession, and I guarantee you will encounter various aspects of safety. In fact, at 3M, we do a lot of training every year, and a lot of it's online, but we go down and we do fire safety training, and I've done AED training, all kinds of other stuff that are hands-on with people and mannequins and everything else. And it's important stuff to learn, and it's important for your career. So you should start right away when you're in First Robotics and just get used to it, develop that culture of safety that First Robotics wants you to have. And I know people are going to have this question. Safety award's been canceled, at least for now. So why should I care about safety anymore? And the answer is nothing has changed. Safety is still important, award or not. For instance, one of the places that we went to was the Monticello nuclear plant. We took a tour there and we talked to all the people there, and everybody was involved in safety. You can imagine what happens if something goes wrong there. Some of the worst disasters in the world have been nuclear plants that melt down. So the people that are operating them now, safety is extremely important to them. They have to put out power, but not if they can't do it safely. And when we talked to him about it, he said, his quote was that safety is the most important thing that we do. Not producing power, not anything else, because all that will come from safe operations. And a lot of you are saying, well, we wear safety glasses in the shop. And you think, is this a safety program? No, but it's a start. Safety is a life skill. It's a skill that can save your life and the lives of your family, friends, all your loved ones. So again, learn it now, learn all the elements of it, learn to think and look and observe your environment as to what's safe and what isn't. Safety matters a lot in industry. I know this from firsthand, that accidents can result in a lot of paperwork, in addition to corrective action forms. Some of you are familiar with corrective action forms because they're in the first safety manual. Those are a real thing in industry too. You have to fill them out, and they're a lot more extensive than that, because what industry wants is, okay, there was an accident. What happened? How do we prevent it? That's how you do it, with using the corrective action form. In industry, you can get people like the fire marshal to come in, outside people, and they can impose fines, jail times, all kinds of stuff. And companies that deal with a lot of chemicals like 3M, if you have an accidental release of chemicals into the environment, that's where real trouble can come. I mean, you've probably seen it all the time in the news about chemicals that 3M didn't even know that they were dangerous, but they got into the environment through waste that thought was protected and everything like that, and now it's in the water. It's actually all over the world. It's unbelievable, and it's a big mess. And if perhaps people would have known more about it, they could have done something about it before it became a problem. And one of the biggest things is you can be disciplined, demoted, or fired. We had an intern once, and he was actually in robotics, and he was a little careless with a chisel, and he hurt himself pretty badly. And we had to, go through all of our procedures and everything and see what we could have done to prevent that. But in the end, his employment wasn't continued for that one reason. You just can't have someone there that's a danger to themselves and others. And you ask, why does it still matter in FIRST Robotics? Well, if somebody gets hurt, the parents are going to call the school, and then the next thing you know, the principal says, "You guys are done. If you can't operate. You can't be allowed to do this. If people are going to be getting hurt, I can't take calls from these parents and that their kids got hurt doing whatever." Not only that, but if they do allow you to continue, their insurance rate for the things they do may increase, and the next thing you know, they're going to pass that cost along to your robotics team, and you know how hard we all struggle to get the money that we do for financing. And if you're not safe, but you could also hurt somebody else. Imagine how guilty you'd feel about that if you hurt somebody else or permanently crippled or even killed them. And other schools in that area, other principals, they talk. They might look at it and say, well, I don't know, this could happen on our team. We should probably cancel it. And of course, things like this can happen. It's rare, but it could happen. Someone does a careless job wiring it, or they're mishandling it or something. A robot starts on fire, and the next thing you know, they're disqualified from the competition for wrecking the field or something like that. You don't want that. And of course, at your school and in industry, we have something even new the last 2 years, very significant, and even prevented us from holding competitions in person. COVID-19, I'm sure you've heard of it. You're all very familiar these days with all the PPE required, the spacing elements and things like that. You think it's a problem in schools, imagine how businesses have to deal with this. They have to limit people coming in, enforce mask laws, all kinds of other things. So safety this is layered on top of everything else we have, but it's important because people are dying from this. So we have to make sure all of our students are safe and they are familiar with all the PPE and everything else that they need to do to work through the pandemic. So what are your safety goals? This is a quote from the First Safety Manual. And even though there isn't a safety award this year, they did put out a safety manual. You can download it. It was just recently released. It's got a lot of good information in there, and it's both for FTC and FRC. And again, they will say that they want to instill a culture of safety. That sounds a little bit vague, but that's really their goal. Safety is a core value. And it's a journey. It's not just you take a test or you show somebody how to use a drill press. That's not a culture of safety. Culture of safety is when students automatically put on gloves and safety glasses, and they watch each other as they're using equipment. They'll say, hey, you need to step back from that. You need to use ear protection. They've learned all these things, and it's in everything that they do. So they're ready to go. And industry has exactly the same goals. This is a typical, on the right is a typical kind of a part of a poster that's used in industry. And you can see they have the same goals towards safety, a safety culture with such important things as leadership, like we do as safety captain, and communication. Safety captain works with all the students on the team and communicates to them what is safe, what isn't, and how they can operate all their equipment safe.
Okay. Everyone's job is to stay safe, and it's not only on the safety captain to make sure that your team is doing everything right, that everyone wears safety goggles, that everyone knows that if you're using a loud machine that you have to put on like ear headsets. How to develop a safety program for your team? Question. I know a team that has an excellent safety program. Can I just copy the program? Well, it depends because they definitely have a different team culture and like a leadership structure, and it might not work for you. Like it definitely will work for them, but not you. For example, they got different safety hazards. For, our team has 2 CNC machines. Not all teams might have that. Or like take the picture for example. There is a laser cutter. So like, what would you need to stay safe using this? You can type in chat what things like you would buy to keep stay safe while using a laser cutter. Eye protection, definitely.
All right, now let's talk about how you develop a safety program for your team specifically. Firstly, you're going to want to start with the captains, coaches, and sub-team leads. Make sure you talk about and demonstrate safety, and also make sure you make an agenda item at each team meeting for safety. Then for all of the team members, you need to be able to explain why safety is important. And then after your training, you need to be able to explain what you learned from that. And make sure you aren't that guy who loses an arm.
What safety equipment is important? Of course, there are the basic safety glasses, a first aid kit, fire extinguisher, and a battery spill kit. What, like your own team's personal basic safety equipment, that might vary a bit because every team has different like equipment, different hazards. Yeah. So the question is, does everyone on your team know how to use this equipment and like when to use this equipment? Yeah, so type in chat like what other things, like kind of uncommon things do you have as your personal basic safety equipment?
This is for when
Well, we can't do the
in-person
in-person fire extinguisher examination. There is an important thing you need to know. As Sarah mentioned, you can have all this safety equipment, but you need to know how to use it. You can see here, and this is what we do, the fire department commonly have equipment over there so that you can actually go over there and use an actual fire extinguisher and put out a real fire. It gives you excellent practice, and you're also more comfortable using it. You know, it's much easier, for instance, if you have a fire in your kitchen, and all kitchens should have a fire extinguisher, but if you're trained and you can put the fire out, you can save everybody else in the home. You might have an invalid upstairs or something that can't evacuate very easily, so everyone running out of your house isn't really going to help that person. So that's why it's important for you to be trained, and a fire extinguisher is a very simple thing. You just have to remember the pass system. There's a pin on it. When you pick it up, you pull that pin out, you aim it. In this particular case, you can see she has a fire extinguisher with a hose on it. and it's a fairly large one too. And you sweep, or you squeeze the trigger to activate it, and then you sweep it along the base of the flame. The top of the flames isn't going to help anything. They're not even connected to what's burning anymore. It's really at the base of the flame. She's almost a little bit too high there where she's aiming, but the fluid is likely to fall off onto the flames down there. And most fire extinguishers that people have, you have only a matter of seconds before they're empty. So being trained allows you to use them effectively and put out bigger flames than you might think. I remember once doing fire training for 3M, and we used a big pan full of teaspoons. And the woman in front she wasn't very confident with it, and she just sort of sprayed around and actually ran off. She was scared. And the fires got bigger. And the guy in front of me, he just squeezed his for a little bit, and it was only partially full. So all of a sudden I'm facing this towering inferno, but I just did exactly what the instructor told me to do, and I was able to put the fire out. The other two people couldn't for various reasons. They weren't trained and very confident, and they had an equipment malfunction. So only one of 3 attempts was actually successful. So you always want to be that one attempt that works.
Implementing a safety program on your team. So first, define hazards in your shop or school. What hand and power tools you use, shop equipments that have like cutting blades and other things, and chemicals like soldering, welding, etc. Personally, we have a bandsaw, 2 CNC machines, a 3D printer. We have like the typical soldering, like control team stuff. Determine a risk mitigation plan for the hazards. How can you reduce the risk of an injury? Who is trained in using these tools? And like, if they aren't, can they use them without training? Is personal protective equipment required? How does the team store tools and chemicals and maintain and check condition before use? Train your team so they know the hazards and mitigation plans.
Sarah talked about training and how to store chemicals and things like that. One of the big things that FIRST wants us to use, and it's in the safety manual, is to have access to, it's now an SDS, it used to be a MSDS, material safety data. What it is, it tells you everything about that chemical. For instance, how to store it, how to fight it if there's a fire, how to dispose of it, and what to do if the chemical contacts your skin or something like that. It's all good information. It needs to be handy and accessible so that if something happens, you can quickly look it up and determine how to deal with it.
All right, let's talk about how you get a safety program for your team. First, you need to make a schedule prior to the build season for your safety training. And so this includes reading this first safety manual, signing a safety agreement, basic safety training, and a safety quiz. You also need to review a safety topic at team meetings during the build season. One topic from the safety manual each week would do pretty well here. And each lead of your sub-teams could present a topic as well. So for example, mechanical, they could present how to use a bandsaw safely. And also you need to make sure you have hands-on demonstration of these safe practices.
Each of these things helps you work towards having a culture of safety. If you just have it once or something like that, people are going to forget everything. But if you're talking about it all the time, even for brief periods of time, you know, at the beginning of a meeting or something like that, after a while, people begin to realize that we're serious about this. This is important. I should be paying attention. I should be following these things. That's how you get a culture of safety. See, can't do that one either, but we can do the battery response video. And I do have the sound turned on this time.
Yes, we do. Hey Raj, can you hand me that wire cutter?
Sure. Oh no, the battery!
In this video, we will teach you how to handle a battery spill. Before we start, make sure that you are comfortable dealing with a battery spill. If you are not, do not proceed. Ask someone else to do it.
It's leaking acid. Does anybody know how to handle a battery spill?
I do, I'm trained.
Step 1. Clear the area and notify the safety captain and mentors immediately.
Can you please go get the safety captain and mentor?
I'm on it.
Please stand back, everyone. It's dangerous. Stand back.
Your team should have a battery spill kit near the work area. In the kit, you'll find safety goggles, 2 pairs of gloves, baking soda, paper towels, Ziploc bag, warning sign, and electrical tape. Step 2. Put on the gloves and the safety goggles. Step 3. Neutralize any leaking acid by pouring baking soda from the kit on all seen liquid. Note that the baking soda will react with the acid, so temporary bubbling will occur. Step 4. Carefully place the battery inside one of the plastic bags. You can ask someone to put gloves and goggles on to help you. Squeeze out as much air as possible without allowing any acid to escape, then seal the bag shut. Step 5. Place the bag battery in the battery spill kit container and seal the lid shut with several wraps of electrical tape. Step 6. Neutralize any remaining acid with a baking soda. Step 7. Clean up the neutralized acid with a paper towel and place them in the second plastic bag along with any other material contaminated with battery acid. Step 8. Place the warning sign from the kit near where the leak occurred. Carefully remove the gloves and place them in the Ziploc bag along with the paper towels and neutralized acid. Then seal the bag shut. Step 9 is to ask the safety captain or mentor to review the cleanup. Finally, fill out an incident report. Make sure to write down the corrective action plan that you used to handle the incident. Also, write down ways to prevent it from happening in the future. There are a few more points we need to cover. First, the best way to manage a battery acid spill is to prevent one with careful handling and transportation of robot batteries and regular inspection of their case and terminals. Second, always have a proper battery spill kit where there are robot batteries and periodically check the contents for expired baking soda and missing or damaged components. Conduct annual training of appropriate personnel on the procedure to properly manage a battery acid spill and ensure your team knows who they are. Finally, please read the battery safety section of the first safety manual for further information, and then read the entire manual to learn more about other important topics regarding safety and robotics. On behalf of Team 2220, stay safe and have a great season.
Okay. So now this is an example we we made this many years ago because we wanted all the students to know how to use a battery spill kit in advance. And we've actually had to use it mostly for other teams. They've asked us to help it out. And but hopefully your team has battery spill kit. They don't necessarily have to have those elements. They can have them in different forms. And even we've added a few things. We have a little plastic scoop now that helps to scoop up the battery or scoop up the baking soda. And a lot of teams don't have that much baking soda with them. You need to use a full box. You need to use it all up and get that neutralized. Because not only do you don't want it to be hazardous for anybody else, but you also don't want to damage the surface that it's on, whether it be some teams' nice gym flooring or carpeting or something like that. One question we always get too is, well, what do you do with the stuff when you're done with it, the battery and everything? Well, wherever you are, and this is what we've done in the past when we've cleaned up spills, is you take them to an auto parts store. By law, they sell batteries and they're required to accept them for reclaiming. So you just take it in there. They'll take it for me without fee and they will properly dispose of it.
Okay, so let's go over what documentation is important in regards to safety. So first, we got the basics. So you're going to want an FRC safety manual, some completed safety checklists, and some corrective action forms. Also some training records. Can you guys think of anything else that might be needed? If you can, let us know in the chat.
You can see two of these basic documentation pieces are from the FRC safety manual. Safety checklists, that's where you go around and you assess an environment in advance. For instance, a safety captain can do that in the workshop every day before the rest of the team gets there. Whereas corrective action reports are after the fact of an accident, so that you can figure out how to prevent it from happening ever again. And that's something you want to communicate with your team. Training records are used because you want to know who's been trained in what things. We have to have that in industry, and we really should have that in FIRST Robotics too.
How do we sustain our safety program? Choose 2 to 3 things that you want to add to your safety program this year, and then add 2 to 3 things next year. Build on your current safety program, make it better every year, make it more extensive every year.
Again, that's how you develop a culture of safety. You just keep at it. You keep adding to what you've been doing.
All right, now we're going to move on to a more overlooked side of safety, but just as important. This is the mental health section of our presentation. And you might not realize it, but there are actually 1 in 4 students affected by mental illness. So can you guys, do you know anyone who is struggling with their mental health? If you do, let us know in the chat. It doesn't have to be anything specific, just a simple yes or no will do.
Mental health first aid. So there's this little acronym ALGI, and this is like what to do if to like check up on your friends, right? So first, assess for risk of harm or suicide. L, listen non-judgmentally. G, give information and reassurance. E, encourage professional help. And E, encourage self-help. So humans are social creatures. Everyone can do with a little more, talking to people, connecting with others, right? Just like check up on your friends, make sure they're doing all right, make sure your family members are doing all right. So in chat, what self-help, like what things can you do for yourself too? that would help you with like your mental health?
The section where it says encourage professional health. At school, the obvious answer should be the school nurse. Outside of that, you know, you usually have some trusted teachers that you can talk to if you or a friend is having mental issues, but don't keep it to yourself. There are a lot of people that are willing to help.
Okay, so I know a lot of people usually just stand by when they see issues like this happening with people struggling with their mental health. But you don't have to. You can be like that person who goes up to the person that's struggling, and like you could, for example, use some of the steps of algae that we just discussed. As the shirt says, tell someone, I'll listen, tell me.
What are some takeaways from this presentation that will help develop a culture of safety for your team? Like you can unmute, answer, or you know, use the raise hand thing in Zoom.
Yeah, you're able to speak if you want to. So if you have a takeaway that you think is especially relevant, we all like to. What about you, John? What's your big takeaway?
I would say my big takeaway from this is that safety, no matter what, even if there isn't some award that you get for it, safety is always super important. And also we have like specific roles as safety captain, safety team. But really, if you think about it, everyone should technically, I guess, be the safety captain because everyone should practice safety.
That's good. That's good. What about you, Sarah?
Oh, I learned that you have to focus a little more on the mental health side of things. Mental health, especially in like our society, like no one really talks about it, right? It's like deal with it your own, right? So everyone has to like, you know, make this one of the like, don't make this some weird like ostracized like thing. Make it like part of your safety program, right? People have said someone learned how to clean up battery acid, which is really important, right? The robot uses a crap ton of batteries. Batteries everywhere. Hell yeah. Someone said bring it up at every meeting, which like, yeah, our team or like something you could do is like have a little presentation. We mentioned this before, but like every lead does like a little thing like the mechanical team captain could be like, this is how you use one of our power tools, or like me, the safety captain, I could do something like, this is how you use a ladder, this is how you use this, when you should or should not do this or that. What recommendations would you have for staying safe, mentally, emotionally healthy when using social media? Okay, in general, like if you see something that affects you mentally like very badly, like immediately, like you aren't obligated to like continue like following that person to, even if they're like some online friend, like yourself is the most important. So if you want to block them, mute them, whatever, like go for it. Like you don't owe people online your time or energy. Or you know how online you see a lot of social activism sites like care about this terrible thing has happened. Like in the end, like you don't have to spend your entire life, you aren't obligated to care about these things, right? So make sure that you're safe and happy and healthy first, and then do your best to, you know, help out in the world.
That's good, Sarah. And I'm glad you brought up mental health again, too, because there's always such a stigma associated with it. People are ashamed if they have those kinds of issues. No one's afraid of having a broken leg. They, you know, want people to sign their cast, but if they're depressed, that's a much bigger issue, isn't it? And unfortunately, social media doesn't help. It's unfortunate, though, too, that those people say things that they wouldn't say to a person or in person to them. Anyway, are there any more things you'd like to discuss or any questions for anyone? People have a lot of recommendations in there. Limit your usage on social media. And remember, there's a lot of fake news out there.
Another,
People will say anything they want.
another thing is, even if it is true, like a lot of like social justice accounts or like environmental accounts, they're not actually like actively doing things to help them. So it's not like a lot of things require you to donate money or like do things that you can't really do right now, or like you might never really get the opportunity to do. So it's like,
Yes, and remember now that FIRST has made an attempt, a lot of attempts actually. For instance, we have quiet rooms at a lot of competitions. So if you're feeling overwhelmed or stressed out by all the stimulus and everything like that, go locate the quiet room at competitions and you can just go in there. The lights are low, it's quiet. You can lay down and you can just recharge and refresh and come out and experience the full robotics competition after that. So FIRST is doing a lot of things to think about it. That was, I think, one of the best things I've seen in a long time. Take advantage of it if you need it.
what is the worst situation you've encountered, or like what is the best story about a near miss? I personally don't really have any like really dangerous stories. Honestly, it's the little things. Once I accidentally pushed over a cabinet. It was like it's a pretty big cabinet, right? It's like, I don't know, 7 feet tall, a couple feet wide. I cannot measure things. But anyways, it was on like this weird little wheel thing magic. Think of like a skateboard, but like it's flat, right? It was on that, and they told me to move this cabinet, and then I ended up like pushing it over, right?
So what would you do to have prevented that in the future?
Okay, I probably should have like asked someone to help me, right? It was like, but then again, we probably should not have put it on wheels in the first place. Like it was not attached to the wheels. They were like, yeah, it was like a janky little not skateboard thing.
So there was a lot of issues involved with that one incident.
Yeah.
You know, you could have maybe done a different job moving it, but in reality, it shouldn't have been that way in the first place. That is a big problem with cabinets. Happens to a lot of little children to try to climb them too. So that's an example of a safety related thing. It's an example of a safety related thing in your home that you could potentially save a younger sibling by identifying a safety hazard before they even come to it. That's why having a culture of safety and learning about these things is important, because wherever you go, then you have an eye out for where are the fire extinguishers, where are the exits. Boy, there's that floor is slippery over there, and you can avoid all these problems. So, well, it looks like we've come to the end of our presentation. If there's anything good that you might have, you can certainly contact us later on, but let's have a final whiz about here. Whose job is safety? This works out a lot better in person because we always have everyone yelling the answer. Everyone.
Hell yeah. Yay.
All right. Thank you, everyone. And stay safe. Develop your own culture of safety.
Thank you, John, Sarah, and John. That was really good. I really liked the pictorials that you used. They made me laugh in many cases. It's a good job.